this story. Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane is not giving up the fight to stay in office. She's now approached the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Mkhwebane wants this commission to order the South African government to stop all processes to remove her from office. She's accusing the state of violating her right to human dignity, among other things. Well, let's discuss all of this now with Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane from the Institute for Responsive and Accountable Governance. In fact, he's the Institute's chairperson. Advocate Thipanyane, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Firstly, my question is such a commission, a continental commission, a place where one could run to as a South African if you felt that your rights, as your human dignity rights, for example, as the public protector is alleging in an affidavit, have been violated?
Good afternoon to you and to viewers. Yes, you can. South Africa has actually ratified the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. So we are allowed to bring matters to that Commission on Human Rights issues. We've done it before. If you recall, Mr. Prince, who lost the Dachau case, Constitutional Court, did take the matter to the African Commission. Unfortunately, he lost.
So she's going there now while there's this process that we're anticipating to take place in Parliament, and having lost a recent court case about whether or not the president has a right in terms of the Constitution to suspend her. This particular body, what kind of recourse is she seeking from them and from the state?
Well, she wants a compensation of 50 million rands for legal costs she's incurred so far, as well as to the undermining of her dignity and her rights in general. But more importantly, she's challenging the fact that, you know, the government or the country is violating Article 26 of the African Charter, which basically provides for independent courts. That by including a judge in the committee, which basically advised Parliament on impeachment, that is actually a violation of the Charter. And therefore, the African Commission must declare the conduct of government so far as violating the African Charter, and that particular clause in the rules which govern the conduct of chapter institutions must be declared unconstitutional, but also the matter must be suspended pending the decision by the African Commission on this matter.
Can this continental body and its rules, and although it's been ratified by the Republic of South Africa, supersede South African constitutional and other laws? I mean, what comes first?
Well, the African Commission does supersede the national system. However, you cannot go to the African Commission under normal circumstances if you have not exhausted internal remedies in the country. And therefore, one could argue that the matter of the public protector still has to go to Parliament for Parliament to make a decision whether she should be impeached or not, and she can then still challenge that decision in the Constitutional Court. However, she's challenging a very small part of the process, which is actually quite interesting, but also a bit of a concern that, you know, all she's challenging is the fact that the process leading to a decision by Parliament is unconstitutional and it must be stopped. The Constitutional Court has already made a ruling. So basically the issue is whether the African Commission will agree with her that the Constitutional Court was wrong in allowing a judge to sit in that committee. Now, this also creates a problem of separation of powers. As you know, the Judicial Service Commission consists of judges, parliamentarians, and ministers. The panel which recommends members of the IEC also includes judges and commissioners. The committee, the Equality Review Committee, which advises the Minister of Justice, also includes judges, parliamentarians. So basically in our country, the whole issue of separation of powers in our country is not very clear. So that's what she's challenging. Basically, one could argue that she's actually asking for a very pure form of separation of powers, which hardly exists anywhere in the world.
Now, I'm just thinking, is she jumping the gun a bit from what you said earlier, that the internal processes, the national processes, let's call it, have not yet been all exhausted, even if she's challenging one aspect or one small area?
In the main, one would say so, but I guess those who are purists of separation of powers, who want a very clear division between separation of powers, which does not exist anywhere in the world, would argue that, well, since the Constitutional Court has already made a ruling, that there is no such violation, then she's entitled to go to the African Commission. But I'm sure the Commission will probably dismiss the matter and send it back to South Africa.
Now, what kind of possible ramification or impact could this have? This move by the public protector now to approach the Commission, the continental body, on the internal processes which are still going to play itself out. Or let me phrase my question differently. If Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, as Speaker, now receives this information, will she speak to parliamentary people and say, let's stop this now while we wait for the Commission, or we carry on?
Well, government will have to carry on and challenge this complaint in the African Commission. Now, for argument's sake, even if the African Commission was to find in favor of the Busisiwe Mkhwebane, it will then have to submit its report to the African Commission, the African Commission, where heads of states will then decide on the report. So it's going to be a long, drawn process, and I don't really see where it's going to end. The fact of the matter is that, we don't have a clear separation of powers in our country, as I've outlined earlier on. So to argue that a judge in that panel who only advised Parliament as to whether Parliament should impeach her or not is unconstitutional, that to me, to be honest, it's a long shot, unless, you are a Puritan. And I don't think our constitutional structure allows for that narrow approach of separation of powers.
So it's likely then, if the domestic process continue, by the time the Commission gets to be seized with this matter, she might be out of office.
Yes, the African Commission might not even entertain the matter to say, well, you've actually not even exhausted internal remedies if you take a broad approach to separation of powers.
Yeah, it's a very interesting development. I don't know if it's a fair question for you in your role as a chairperson of the South African Institute for Responsive and Accountable Governance, but I mean, it's surprising to me when I saw this, to the extent to which she's going to stay in office when she's still got one more year, really, to live. And then she's speaking about human dignity and her rights being violated in that respect. Why would somebody go to continental lengths, so to speak, to stay in office?
It is concerned, really. One could see this really as delaying tactics. I mean, the public protector itself gave birth to the Zondo Commission, who's a judge sitting in the commission who does not have binding powers. So is that a violation of separation of powers or not? We have the Marikana Commission as well. So one would actually argue that, it's actually quite a sad development when it comes to how we understand governance of institutions in our country and how we understand the constitution in our country. So one could actually see it as delaying tactics and, to a large extent, a waste of taxpayers' money, to be honest.
Thank you very much. That's Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane. He's a chairperson of the South African Institute for Responsive and Accountable Governance, giving us some of his views about the news that we've seen coming out, that Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane has approached the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. He wants the Commission to order the South African government to stop all processes to remove her from office. I mean, she's claiming that the state is violating her right to human dignity. Among other things, she's claiming damages of 50 million rand.